Welcome to the Awakening Podcast, another episode of Sane in an Insane World with Arnold, and you'll find all the episodes on awakeningpodcast.org. This week, we're going to talk about plane crashes, Turkey protest, Giza Pyramid, abolishing the Department of Education, and the Blackrock Panema Canal. There's a nice picture of the Giza Pyramid. We'll talk about that later. There's the Panama Canal, AI, Arnold's pet, Mirage, AI-generated video, DOBOT, helping you in the kitchen and at work, Atlas, breakdancing, and then there's a nice quote. The Good News Caravan, Salutogenesis. Arnold will probably kill me if I pronounce that wrong. Doctors liable for senile injections. There's this thing with that. And health. Not the same from McDonald's, fries to spinach, and then safe alternatives to cooking oils. Got our picture with that, with some information, and the oils, which is a small picture which I'll make big for you. And then other topics, GDPR camera in Australia, and alternative energy. How are you this week, Arnold?
I'm excellent. A lot of exciting things happening. So, we always have to put more in to restrict ourselves than to expand. So, please be aware that there's much more to share, but we only get. Well, we don't want to take up all your time, so we took some of the most interesting things.
Exactly. So we might as well start off in the order that they are. The plane crashes.
Yeah, it was for a long time that when people talk about the safety of transport, people always say is that by far planes are the most safe way of transport compared to cars, trucks, trains. But what has been happening, and I'm sure you've seen it, there have been more than 140 plane crashes in the past 2 months.
Really? Wow.
140. So there is something happening there, and a lot of them are that they're crashing into where they are landing, and then they crash into a wall or somewhere else, or it catches fire. So 140. So there is something happening, and that automatically means flying is not by far the safest thing of doing anymore.
And I just saw the other day, there was a fire in Heathrow. Of course, journalists coming out blaming the Russians straight away. Turns out it was a generator that caused the fire. But you don't see these journalists coming out apologizing to the Russians going, yeah, we're blaming you for everything else but our propaganda. You never hear no more about that. And it's pathetic the way they just jump to conclusions, because there's a load of people out there then that, regurgitate what they've just heard and share it around. And it gets to millions before the truth goes. So. Turkey protests. What's going on there?
We try to keep you updated on what is happening in many different countries, and which is not shared by the mainstream media because we'll be talking about a lot of other countries, but now in Turkey for the past, I think, close to a week now, they're protesting against the mayor who wants to run for president, but he's been arrested. But that is not only the reason. The reason is also there's economic decline. The infrastructure is falling apart, everything going down. So Turkish citizens are no longer accepting the way their country is right now. So that is happening in Turkey and Istanbul, but in many of the larger cities in Turkey. So something to watch out. But we share this because it's important to see is like, oh, there's some problem in Turkey. No, I shared with you Romania, I shared with you Greece, I shared with you Serbia, so Georgia. So there are a lot of things happening all over the world, which that's what we do here for you, is we connect the dots and we show you is like everywhere in many, many countries, citizens are no longer accepting the status quo.
And I had heard, I went with my son last year to Turkey, Alanya to Kemer was the place. And I was hearing a lot, people complaining about the Turks and how bad it was. It was one of the best holidays we had. It was one of the safest places we were walking on, never any hassle. The staff were the nicest I've ever come across. So sometimes we hear this information and we just assume it to be true. And if you like cats, go to Kimmer, the place is just full of wildcats, and all the locals are looking after them. So they'll come up and they'll sit next to you. They all look very healthy. So a beautiful place. So I suppose the Giza Pyramids, and I mean, we look at this beautiful picture.
Yeah, and it's a little bit there are 3-4 black holes, which is the original pyramid which you would see above the sand. Yeah, so that is the structure. There are some kind of, well, they look like phone booth, something like that, which are inside of them, which were totally new. People didn't know they exist. But the main thing is what is below the surface. Those are 8 pillars, and they're not just any pillars. It goes more than 600 meters deep. Hmm? And it is sad, but there's still a little bit of discussion around that it's part of a complex of more than 2 kilometers wide, which is even below those pillars. So what those pillars are or what they do, they don't know. It's been done by a scan, so it's not someone started digging. No, it's by a special technology where they came up with these things. And well, I'm not sure whether it's next week, but at least very soon, because they had a press conference where they shared this picture and everything. But they're gonna talk about more details, and especially, well, really curious about what are these pillars about and what they're doing.
And
And
just, I had seen years ago that apparently there was copper on the top of the pyramids and that it was an energy source. And for me, it's kind of seeming like there's a load of pyramids all around the world, but we only hear about Egypt. And also, is it like the Tartarian Emperor, the free energy? That's what it seems like, but it's very hard to get the truth.
yeah, it's yeah, that's said in a lot of things. It's kind of a power plant, and I've seen things. It was not clear, so I'm not sharing it. But I saw some pictures of the work of Nikola Tesla, and they look very, very similar to what we're seeing here. So there's some very exciting and interesting things happening here. And definitely it proves that we are talking about a very, very advanced civilization, which I could even say is much more advanced than we are. And whereas most of us think, well, people from the past are more stupid than we are. That's not really the case.
Next one, Panama Canal. So, not sure if you heard about that one, Arnold, but apparently Blackrock. So, some people think Blackrock will be buying the Panama Canal. That's not what it is. It's the ports both sides is, I think, it's 23 billion. But I have seen what they have done in Ireland and probably all over the world. Like they're getting properties pennies on the dollar and then charging 3 times the rent what it used to be. So all I can see happening here is the increase in costs and tariffs to the all different countries. So which in turn we'll have shipping problems, we'll have additional costs and everything. So I think it's not a good thing. Anything I see BlackRock touching is never a good thing. So we need to be aware of this one.
Well, that's going to be an extra tariff on top of all the Trump tariffs then.
Yeah, it's
Which in the end results, everything's gonna be much more expensive for you and me.
yeah, yeah. So the last one there was abolishing the Department of Education.
Yeah, we shared a couple of shows before about the executive orders in the US, where Trump basically writes down what he wants to have done. And there's a department, Doge or Doji is like Department of Government Efficiency, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, Doge. Yeah, it's copying his coin. Like I think it's all a scam. I mean, it's all about promoting things. I mean, we touched on that a few episodes back where you can kind of gamble on it, which I'm totally against gambling. So yeah,
And now people were cheering, and I read some of the comments. It's like they completely abolished the Department of Education. I don't know by when or what's gonna do, and people are cheering about that. Well, from a content point of view, you might say, yeah, well, especially in the U.S., education is quite lousy, but You have to wait. What's going to replace it? Hmm? And will that be any better? And is the technology ready? And can we? Well, how many students are there in the world? Millions. So, are we? Well, likely they're going to use AI, but that means that people will be kind of day and night glued to a screen, and that has some negative impact. So, I'm making my own bridge to the next topic, which is a teacher who.
Actually, yeah, you can share that because you have a video on that. That's worth watching. And just as you're finding that there, I had about the trade unions in the education system, and somebody came on my show that was basically saying how corrupt they were. And I've seen a few cases of that, and it got a strike, it got removed. And I always say, yeah, they're removing stuff because it's true, because they leave up all negative, demonic stuff. So when they take away things like that, you go, all right, there's something to this that they've removed it. Okay, you're going to play the video of that teacher.
A well, in French you would say a cri de coeur, yeah, a shout from the heart of this teacher. This is a teacher who shares with us in a very powerful way what is happening in the classroom right now.
I think that you guys don't know what's going on in education right now. That's fine. Like, how could you know unless you're working in it? But I think that I think you need to know. So here is exactly what it's like right now working in public education. First of all, the kids have no ability to be bored whatsoever. They live on their phones and they're just fed a constant stream of dopamine from the minute their eyes wake up in the morning until they go to sleep at night. Because they're in a constant state of dopamine withdrawal at school, they behave like addicts. They're super emotional, like the smallest thing sets them off. And when you are standing in front of them trying to teach, they're vacant. They have no ability to tune in if your communication isn't packaged in short little clips or if it doesn't have like bright flashing lights. That's actually the way harder part for me than just the outright behaviors, is just being up at the front, talking to a group of kids who have their eyes open, they're looking at me, but they're not there. They're not there. And they have a level of apathy that I've never seen before in my whole career. Punishments don't work because they don't care about them. They don't care about grades. They don't care about college. It's like you are interacting with them briefly in between hits of the internet, which is their real life. I've seen some TikToks recently where teachers are getting a lot of hate, like for not adapting to the kids or punishing them or whatever. And I just got to say, like, I can tell you with absolute certainty, it is not the teacher's fault. It might be the parents' fault. It might be our capitalistic society's fault, but it is not the teacher's fault.
And this is, you see, it's an article from Ted Joya, what's happening to students. So we'll put the link in the show notes. But it describes that it's not only with young kids, it's also with college students, whatever. It's become a total disaster how to teach things. So I'm really curious how in the US, by abolishing the Department of Education, how that is going to, how they are going to replace the teachers and using something which, well, works better, but at the same time doesn't totally mind control the children. So I'm really curious to see what's happening there, and well, there is a risk that we throw away the child with the bathwater. So it's really something to keep an eye on.
I've seen, I mean, I've heard one guy, a professor saying that no, he has to teach people how to learn. They don't even have the ability to learn. And the problem is a lot of people, they bring their computers and you don't know, are they actually playing a game? Are they doing something else? Or are they on social media? Are they making notes? And I saw one where the guy was actually wasn't really paying attention, but he was saying, I get a better synopsis from your notes because all you're doing is reading it and you're wasting my time. And the professor freaked out and he walked out. But like, that's the reality as well. Like you've got different teachers, different professors. Some are useless and you can use AI to actually help you. But on the other side, most of the people, they're not even paying attention, they're not connecting, and they're wasting 4 to 6 years of their life. So since we're on AI, your baby, Arnold.
Yeah, a lot of things happening, especially with humanoid robots. Now, you might say, Arnold, you say it's AI, and why you talk about humanoid robot? You cannot separate them. The humanoid robots are operated by AI. Yeah? There's a couple of videos actually about dancing robots, and I mentioned here Atlas, but there is one from Unitree, a Chinese one, where they are dancing. But it's not that they are dancing in like, okay, someone programmed their software in a way that it should make certain moves. No, the way it works is that the robot looks at the moves of people. So a dancer is dancing, and then the robot watches that moves, and based on those moves, programs itself to do those moves. So that is what AI is doing. So the AI is coding the moves. So it's not like there's a bunch of guys in an office who program certain dance moves. No, they just look at you and then they program it to do themselves, which is totally incredible. So AI and real humanoid robots is totally integrated. So that is about the dancing. There are a couple of things which is totally incredible, and I encourage you to check it out yourself on the web. There's a new video generating tool called Mirage, and and unfortunately a lot of students as well, they get used to is like the AI is writing our content. You have to write a thesis or a marketing text or a review over a podcast, and then people just let the AI write the review. So that is where people of any age, they start to forget how to write. They start to forget how to read. They start to forget how to think because the AI is doing that. Now there's a new thing is not only the AI can provide you with the text, it can create a complete video, yeah, with characters, with text, with environment, with everything included. You just have to give it a script or some introduction, and then it makes a complete video of that. So goodbye to all the movie makers, video makers, and everything else. Is like going to be replaced like that. This is what happened with copywriters. Copywriters related to the content. Now we're going to see videos which are just created about that. And in a moment we're going to show another robot which might be a little bit more useful because it's going to help you in the kitchen. But I invite you to read the quote. Can we get the slide back?
Yes, indeed, yeah.
Yeah. So this slide was from the Abundance Summit, which was quite recently organized by Peter Diamandis, and it says, if 5 or 10 years from now there's something that humans do that AI doesn't, that's because we failed to actually build it. This was a quote from that conference with all high-level people attending. So I think this is horrible. If you say things like that, that means everything we as humans do are going to be replaced by AI or by robot. But nobody talks about what does it mean to us, the human beings, and how, they talk about UBI, Universal Basic Income, but they don't even mention that. So it's like, oh, it's cool that we have that, but no, we totally gonna lose that.
Yeah, sure. You can play that video scene, but just on that, I had a guy that was on a voice coach, and they kind of have an institute that protects him. But I think eventually that's going to get compromised. Or so, like if you're doing audiobooks and things like that, once they have your voice, they don't need you no more. And that's the same for the actors and everything, because they can recreate everything. If to seriously think of, hey, how do I protect my job? How do I, what are we going to do? And I don't think people understand. We're talking hundreds of millions of jobs are going to, and this is so fast, the speed that this is happening. And nobody's thinking of it because nobody thinks about it unless it hits you. When it hits you, then you start crying and nobody's thinking, oh, that's your baby. Instead of everybody going, hey, how are we going to address it? Nobody's saying how we're addressing it. All they're saying is, look at technology. Hey, we can do this, we can do that. Nobody's saying, hey, what are we doing with the taxi drivers? What are we doing with the people that worked in the supermarkets? Even the waiters now, they've got the robots going around the place. What are we doing with all these people that were working?
Yeah, and that is actually why we are sharing this with you. Well, of course, the technology is incredible, but at the same time, it's incredible what Roy just described is what it's going to do to us. So have a look at this robot called DOBOT. It's from China. Um,
Hey, I am your new friend, Gilbert Abbott. Let's bake some bread. And add 2 slices of lettuce for breakfast. Oh, too much for me. Put it back. Want my favorite cherries? Add some milk to kickstart my day. Let's head to work.
Or he's just putting a coffee in there and picking up the coffee for those listening. I suppose as he's doing that, lifting stuff, I think the courier's jobs are gone as well, Arnold.
Yeah.
When you see this, that they're able to lift items and move around. I think.
Hey, here is your coffee.
So that is really what is happening like every day, I would say. Yeah, so,
Yeah, no, we have to keep our finger on the pulse with this one. Yeah, it's okay. The good news caravan. We always there's so much doom and gloom. Give me some good news, Arnold.
yeah, we tend to when we focus what we call healthcare, our healthcare system is really not a healthcare system, it's a sick care system. It treats you when you broken your leg or something else, and then they fix you up. That means that it's not focused on health, it focuses on bringing you back to as close as possible to your previous baseline. What so it's still focused on disease. It's still focused on what causes the disease, and that old way of doing things is called pathogenesis, pathology, and it's about what causes the disease, and it's like, okay, what can we make sure that the problems don't occur again, and it's like, well, you shouldn't be sick, so we should remove it, but it's like, but when you're not sick, when you didn't have an accident, whatever, there's no role for what is called the current healthcare system. When, well, I had a couple of years ago a very severe car crash, and they asked me what my doctor was, and I didn't know, and they were like, "What did you know what your doctor is?" I said, "I had no reason to go there, and my previous doctor had retired, but I hadn't been there in years." So they're all geared toward that something is wrong. Yeah, you have pain, you loss, you have a disease. So that is what the traditional, what they call healthcare, and what I think is a completely wrong name. It should be sick care. If you understand that, it becomes much more that in the 70s there was a doctor called Antonovsky who created something like salutogenesis, and salutogenesis is like, and that is the real healthcare. It's like, what do you need to be healthy? What do you need to reach your potential? And at the same time, it's like, we're not perfect. Yeah. We're not robots. It's always like something might be wrong or whatever, but it's like, it's proactive to say, what do we need to keep you healthy and to do that? Yeah. And to grow and to live fully up to fully alive and to your potential, rather than focusing on the negative thing. Yeah, I heard yesterday an example of an elderly lady who had some problems in her joints, in her knees, and they put some kind of a fluid in there that operates better. But that is reactive, because I asked, did she exercise? Is she doing mobility exercise? Does she do strength training? And the answer was no. So the real healthcare system should be focusing on, hey, what do you do for movement? What do you do for exercise? What do you do for these things? Rather than say, what fluid can we inject into your knees and we hope it will work better? So there's really a huge mindset shift to focus on real healthcare, which is salutogenesis, and the sick care system, which is here.
Sorry, I don't know why that happened, but yeah, my one is about doctors' liability. So, this is an interesting one. It was Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, who's been on our live podcast years ago. A doctor that kind of came out about the jabs and everything and how dangerous and what they were pushing. And I heard the video, so I went away and checked links and things like that. The European Court of Justice considers that doctors will be solely responsible for the consequences of COVID injections because they were free to refuse to inject. According to a ruling by the European Court of Justice, all healthcare professionals who urge or vaccinated you against COVID are civilly and criminally liable. And I mean, if we look at the governments, with all their advertisements, telling pregnant women, and there was even, doctors telling children to get jabbed. So I'll have the link for what I've just said that goes into much more detail. But I mean, I know that there was doctors even ringing patients saying, hey, come in to get your jab. They were pushing it. And it was all because of kickbacks. So, like, how many of them actually knew it? I think the majority of them believed what they were told, because I was talking to a few people and they were thinking that I had a tinfoil hat because I was totally against this, but I had seen the PCR test in 2017-18 in the millions going across, so I knew there was something up. So I learned straight away there was something going on here. And have they kind of believed what was told to them because their whole education system is by Big Pharma, who in turn gives them the stethoscopes and a bag of goodies the minute they walk into the classroom, and they just kind of believe everything that they say, and then they're getting funded. I mean, why do you have to get a kickback? So if they were getting kickbacks, like, why they weren't telling the information? I've seen a load of recordings where, people would go in, they knew, even pharmacists as well, they knew the side effects, they knew that there was people dropping. But honestly, I think there was a lot of stupidity sometimes as well, because I saw people queuing up to go in and somebody's getting carted off in an ambulance where they're queuing in to get jabbed and they stay there. Like, to me, if that's not a warning saying, hey, run, and they weren't. But if you got damaged or a loved one, whether they died or got seriously injured, doctors being liable, is that right? I think that there should be a lot more. The governments, all the media that were pushing this, Big Pharma, of course, but I think it's good for us that there's so many people that were trying to fight this and we're just getting attacked, that when you see something like that, that's a brilliant win.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, health. This is McDonald's fries to spinach. What's that about, Arnold?
Yeah, it's like people assume that a lot of things are the same now as they were in the past. Yeah, so it like there for those of you listening, that there's a picture of a McDonald's French fries, and then someone says it's fine, I ate it when I was a kid, and then the answer is no, you didn't, because the fries you ate in, let's say 10, 20, 30 years ago, their contents were potato, beef tallow, and salt. That was it. That was how the fried looked like, well, at least a substantial amount of years ago. But yeah, the fries still look the same, but they are not the same. There's a whole list of all kinds of not very well. I'm not going to read it, but it's like a lot more stuff than only baked potatoes. So it's really, really terrible because, well, some of that stuff is really bad for your health, but that is in the fries. So although they look the same, they are not the same. Another perspective on that is like, okay, you can look at fries, which are not very healthy anyway. Let's take spinach. It says here that one bowl of spinach in 1953 had the same nutritional value as 43 bowls of spinach today. Why is that? Because the soil is completely deteriorated. It's like because
they're not doing crop rotation, because then they strip the minerals from the soil.
Yeah, it's only one thing, and then they put in pesticides and everything. Well, basically poison, so you get the same thing. So the soil get totally eroded. So the vitamins and nutrients and minerals, everything which is in the soil, is totally gone. Yeah? That is why you say, well, I'm eating healthy. I ate a bit of spinach. Yeah, but did you eat 43 bowls? So it's so it is really not the same anymore. Although, again, just like with the fries, the product it's still spinach. It looks like spinach. Well, it doesn't smell like spinach, I tell you, because the smell is also menaced out of everything. So it's like, no, these products are not the same. Yeah, but I've seen stories like with tomatoes. One tomato, the nutritional value, another one 20 years ago, you got to eat at least 12. So if you say, well, I eat one tomato a day, no, every day, no, you got to eat 12. And nobody does that. So it shows you that even the marketing or thing is dangerous, because it's really comparing apples with pears. The products are not the same.
Like even the tomatoes, like you go into the supermarkets and they all look perfect, beautiful, lovely red color. When my farmer has tomatoes, I look forward to it because the taste is a million times nicer. There's no comparison. Same with the apples and everything. It's like, and regarding your fries there, I do the ant test. Throw them out to the ants or the birds even. I mean, I saw somebody recently giving the nuggets to a dog, and the dog went up and pissed on it, like, and just walked away. So
Really?
yeah, it's like even animals and insects know. So yeah, don't fall for this. And it's interesting. And just for those that don't know, how we do this is we never tell each other what we're actually talking about when we're getting the graphics, but we like to get each other's kind of opinions on it. But it just turns out that I'm talking about the oils, and like, because it's relevant, you in the beef tallow. So most of the oils, and like I want to actually read this, right? The processing of cooking oils, it's many vegetables and seed oils undergo extensive processing which can strip them of nutrients and introduce harmful substances. High energy usage and chemical processing conventional vegetable oil production involves high energy consumption and the use of chemicals like hexane and for extraction. This process can release harmful vapors and deplete natural resources. Bleaching and deodorizing. These steps remove beneficial compounds like polyphenol, antioxidants, and vitamin E, leaving the oil nutritionally inferior. And then health risks of certain oils, oxidation and toxicity. Oils high in polyunsaturated fats, such as vegetable and seed oils, are prone to oxidation when exposed to high heat. They can produce harmful compounds that produce inflammation and chronic disease, right? So, I mean, basically, any of the oils that you use, I heard, rapeseed oil is good for you. Sunflowers is good for you. They're all not, right? So do not believe what I say. Just go away and start researching it yourself. There's plenty of people that went into depth with this. But what I can say is, because I always like for solutions, so I'll actually turn off the screen now so I can show you better, right? So, avocado oil. That's one that you can use. And I use that with eggs because, sometimes you can have an avocado with eggs, but even if you don't have the avocado, why not use avocado oil? It's nice. Coconut oil. No, be careful of this because they even have refined ones. And how you know is when it's a hot day and it melts. This is like liquid format and it's nice. The other one, you can see two different flavors. It's just toxic. You know it's toxic. So you might get the cheaper one. Don't. Just look at it and get the natural one. Then there's the extra virgin olive oil. So that's very good. And the one that Arnold mentioned, and I make my chips with this, is beef tallow. And like there's a big 5 kilo for about €12 or something like that. So I know when you consider what you pay, and you can use ghee and butter as well. So there's alternatives. And like sometimes people say, I need for say popcorn. My son loves popcorn. You can buy, I have a device and it's just, it heats it. I don't have to add anything to it. I put the popcorn in and I get organic popcorn, whether it is or not, we never know, but we try our best to get these things anyway. But it's a hot air and it blows it out and he loves it. So I don't need to burn it in the toxic fats that people think, you have to do it for that. And others is like people nuke it with a microwave. Don't do that either. So you can get a device. It costs about €20. It will heat it. And within a minute or two, you have a big bowl of nice popcorn. So there's always alternatives to everything that you do. So this is, no, yes, the final ones, This is one that I touch a lot with Peter Wilson, the GDPR cameras. So, like when you go into the, now we're working for ourselves, I mean, it's really like machine learning, AI and everything that they're getting rid of all the people working in the supermarket. So you're doing, scanning your items as you're in there, but there's all cameras on you as well. And he's basically saying, hey, they're going against their breach. He even covers his face and they start freaking out. So, like in Australia, they started actually banning that. So they had to remove the cameras from self-service store checkouts as it breached privacy. And like the thing to this is, a lot of times people think it is what it is. We can't do nothing about it. And you can. So they've just proven that they've done it in Australia. So let's do it in every other country. Don't accept it. So, like, I know Peter is telling people, write in, tell them about your data, you want it removed, you don't accept it. And eventually they'll have to do it as well. Because everywhere we go, I mean, I've noticed that in Woodward, like you go around now, there's like a million extra cameras everywhere, as if for safety. Anytime I've had a crime that I've seen a crime or something like that, they never do anything. The only thing the police are there for is actually to stop you walking across the road or if you're speeding or something like that. But when there's a crime, we can't do nothing about that. So when there's all these cameras gathering your information and, learning from us and that you've no privacy, there's ways about it. And finally, alternative energy. I had an interview this week with John Rarity, and there's a guy, Stephen Gear. He's been on Patrick Bet-David show. He's like exposing a lot of stuff. Apparently there was a disc from a CIA guy that had all of the alternative energy and things like that.
Yeah, the UFO and everything.
Exactly. So I've got a lot of the patents. So now I'm saving it all and printing it all. And now my homework for the next kind of month is kind of reading these. But there's a load of different patents on energy, loads of information, which is like a lot of this stuff is quashed. A lot of it is, it's bought by the alternative. They don't want it to come out because it'll affect their bottom line. So for me, there is stuff out there. There is information. I've tried to even organize it myself on a drive that I can share with people, and people can perhaps make a donation. That'll just help with all the costs that we've got. But for all these alternative energies, especially when I talked last week about paying €800 for a gas bill, like, I mean, why do we have to be doing this when there's alternative sources out there that are free? So I'll be sharing, as I'm reading it, information on that as well.
And we could also link that what we today in the show shared about the Giza Pyramid, which is likely, well, we don't know for sure, a power plant, which creates free energy. Yeah? So we're really curious about the details of the report. They had a press conference where they said the findings and how it worked with scanning this stuff, which is totally incredible. By the way, you scan something 600 meters deep without digging into it. I don't know how that works, but it's really incredible. But it's very likely that it's got to do with providing power. Like you said, these pyramids are all over the world, from Indonesia to Bosnia to Central America. They're everywhere. So maybe that's how they provided energy to the world. Yeah, so we'll be really interested to see how well, maybe, and if yes, how they are connected with alternative energy, what you're just describing.
And like I think I mentioned as well that energy, there's dirty energy as well, and I'm using crystals coming in and just to stop it. But what I've seen this week is there's a girl, she goes around and she's driving around with a device that's telling you about the dangerous frequencies, and she was going through the airport in America, and it was off the scale everywhere she was. So you're being bombarded, and a lot of times, like, I think, why do so many people get sick on the plane? No, I was thinking you're on the plane and maybe they're claiming they have filters and it's not. And now I'm thinking maybe we got sick beforehand and it just took a while to kick in, that if we're 2 to 4 hours, which we have to be unfortunately in an airport, and they've got all these toxic frequencies and you don't see it because you don't feel it, you just don't know about it, but it's affecting your cells. It just shows how dangerous it is. So I'll try to go further on that. I mean, I have a device that I went around checking, and it was scary. Just even the oven, the electric part in the oven, the fridge, the electric part in the fridge, just gone off. And so I might invest in one of them and just start going around different places and just to show people where it can be dangerous. I personally believe, like, if you go into the shopping centers, if you go into these electric places, I always feel my energy just depletes, and I try to stay away from as possible. So I'm convinced most of these places are sucking your energy. So it just shows with the airport. I'm not sure if anyone has any more experience on that, but maybe I was wrong about the airplane, the recirculation that was causing all the problems.
Well, it's that you say that. There was a time, a long time ago, when I used to fly a lot for the business, for my corporate role. A lot means out of a 5-day work week, at least 4 days. Yeah. So I flew throughout Europe, which means early in the morning you leave from Amsterdam to London, and in the evening you fly back to it. And the next day I would go to Munich or to Geneva or to any other city. I was always sick. I always had a nose cold, and I'm a pretty healthy guy, and I do sports and everything around it. But I always had a running nose, everything, when I'd been in the plane, which I was for a lot. So that substantiates what you're saying.
Yeah. Perfect. Listen, Arnold, as always, thoroughly enjoyed it. And, for the listeners, let us know if there's anything else you want to cover. We're going through the format that we said. You'll find Arnold on braingym.fitness. You'll find me on roycollin.com, or scan the QR code. You'll find the 6 other podcasts there and go to awakeningpodcast.org. Until next week, take care.